stop before you water your plant again, because that one simple action might be the exact reason it's slowly dying. Not because you don't care, not because you're doing something obvious, but because of one small habit that feels completely right every single time you do it. You see dry soil, you react. You see no growth. You step in. You feel like you're helping. But what if I told you this care you trust so much is quietly suffocating your plant from the roots? And the worst part is, you won't notice it happening until it's already too late. But once you see this, once you understand what's really going on, you'll never water your plants the same way again. The care you trust is quietly destroying your plant. You are not careless with your plant. In fact, you care too much. You look at it every day. You notice every small change. You try to give it everything it might need. But slowly, without realizing it, care turns into constant action. You see dry soil. You water immediately. You see no movement. You think something is wrong. You see silence. And you feel the need to fix it. Because in your mind, doing something means helping. But plants don't work like that. They don't need you all the time. They don't need constant attention. They need balance. They need space to settle. And most importantly, they need time to use what you already gave them. When you water, the plant doesn't respond instantly. When you move it, it doesn't adjust in seconds. Everything takes time, quietly, slowly, beneath the surface. But when you step in again too soon, you break that process. You don't let it finish. You don't let it stabilize. So the plant never fully settles. It keeps trying to adjust again and again without ever feeling stable. And over time, this constant interruption turns into stress, not because you didn't care, but because you cared in a way that never gave it peace. You're suffocating the roots without ever seeing it. What you see above the soil is only a small part of the story. The real life of the plant is happening underneath, hidden, silent, out of your sight. The roots are down there, quietly doing everything that matters. They are searching for water. They are pulling in nutrients. They are building strength, slowly, day by day. But there's something most people don't understand. Roots don't just need water to survive. They need air. They need space inside the soil to breathe. That soft, loose soil is not just holding the plant. It's giving the roots oxygen. And the moment that balance is disturbed, everything begins to change. Every time you water too soon, before the soil has had time to dry, you fill those tiny air spaces with water. The soil becomes heavy, tight, airless, and now the roots can't breathe the way they should. At first, nothing looks wrong. The plant still stands. The leaves still look fine. So you think everything is okay? But underneath, the roots are struggling. They become weak. They stop growing properly. And slowly, they begin to rot. And the most dangerous part is, you don't see any of this happening. You only see the surface. A leaf drops. A color fades. A small sign appears. And what do? You water again, trying to help, trying to fix it. But without realizing, you are repeating the same pressure that is quietly destroying the roots. It becomes a cycle. Water, stress, more water, more damage. And the plant keeps suffering in silence. Because the real problem is hidden where you never look, below the surface, where too much care turns into slow suffocation. Every time you check, you reset its growth. It feels harmless. Just a quick look. Just touching the soil. Just turning the pot a little, so it grows evenly. Just moving it closer to the light, just for today. It doesn't feel like damage. It feels like attention. It feels like care. But what you don't see is every small change you make forces the plant to start over. Plants don't rush. They slowly adjust to their environment. They study the light. They lean toward it. And they build their direction, little by little, day after day. The roots grow based on moisture patterns. The leaves position themselves based on where the light stays consistent. Everything is connected. Everything is based on stability. But when you keep checking and adjusting, that stability disappears. You rotate the pot. The plant has to reorient itself again. You move it to a new spot. It has to relearn the light again. You touch the soil every day. You disturb the natural drying process. And each time, the plant pauses its growth to adjust to the change. What feels like a small action to you is a full reset for the plant. So instead of moving forward, it keeps starting over, again, and again, and again. And over time, this constant resetting becomes exhaustion. The plant never reaches a point of comfort. No, it never fully settles. It never grows with confidence, because just as it begins to adapt, everything changes again. And slowly, growth turns into survival, not because the plant is weak, but because it never gets the chance to feel stable long enough to grow. You fix what you see, while killing what you can't. You notice the small signs first: a yellow leaf, a brown tip, a soft droop that wasn't there before, and instantly, your mind goes into action. Something is wrong. I need to fix this. So you remove the leaf, you add water, you change the position. You try to correct what you can see, because that's what feels logical. If the leaf looks unhealthy, fix the leaf. If the plant looks dry, give it water. But plants don't work from the surface. They speak through the surface. Those leaves, those small changes, they are not the problem. They are messages, signals from something deeper, something hidden. The real story is happening below the soil, in the roots, in the balance of air and water, in the quiet system that you cannot see. But because you can't see it, you don't focus on it. You respond to what's visible and ignore what's actually causing it. So the pattern continues. A leaf changes. You react. Another sign appears. You react again, each time thinking you are helping, each time missing the real cause. And underneath, the roots keep weakening. The soil stays too heavy. The balance stays broken. The damage keeps spreading, slowly, silently, until one day, the plant looks beyond saving, and it feels sudden. It feels confusing. Because you were doing everything. You were trying, you were fixing, but the truth is, you were fighting the symptoms, while the real problem was growing stronger, out of sight. And that is what makes this habit so dangerous. It keeps you busy on the surface, while the real damage continues in the place you never look. The right action, at the wrong time, becomes damage. Water is not the problem. Moving your plant is not the problem. Even checking on it is not the problem. The real issue is timing. You can do everything right and still slowly damage your plant if you do it too soon. This is where most people go wrong. You see the topsoil looking dry, and you assume the whole pot is dry. So you water, but deep inside, the soil is still holding moisture. The roots are still processing what they already have. They are not ready for more. But they don't get a choice, because you act based on what you see, not on what the plant actually needs. And that small mistake repeats again and again. You water before it's ready. You adjust before it settles. You feed before it finishes its cycle. And slowly, the plant loses its natural rhythm. Because plants live in cycles, they take water, then they use it, they rest, then they grow, they expand, then they stabilize. But when you interrupt that cycle, you break the balance. You don't give the plant time to complete its process. So everything becomes incomplete. Half-used water, half-developed roots, half-stable growth, and over time, these small interruptions turn into damage. Not loud, not sudden, but deep, constant, and difficult to fix later. Well, the hardest part is, you still feel like you're doing the right thing, because your actions are not wrong. They are just early. And in plant care, being too early can be just as harmful as being too late. So the real shift is simple, but uncomfortable. You stop reacting immediately. You wait longer than you think you should. You let the plant finish its cycle without interruption, because real care is not just about what you do. It's about when you choose to do it. And when you finally understand that, you stop working against the plant and start working with it. The plant is failing slowly, and you don't notice. Yet, this is what makes this habit so dangerous. It doesn't destroy your plant all at once. It happens quietly, slowly, in a way that feels almost invisible. There is no sudden collapse, no clear warning that forces you to stop and question what's happening. Instead, the change begins so gently that it feels normal. At first, the growth becomes a little slower than before, but you don't think much of it. The leaves are still there. The plant is still standing. So everything seems fine. Then the color starts to lose its depth, not dramatically, just slightly. A green that feels a little dull, a shine that feels a little weaker. But it's so subtle that you ignore it. Days pass, and the plant continues to look okay, not healthy, but not bad enough to worry you. And that's exactly how the damage continues. Because nothing feels urgent, you keep doing the same things. You water the same way. You check the same way. You repeat the same habit that started the problem in the first place. Underneath the soil, however, a completely different story is unfolding. The roots are not as strong as they used to be. They are not spreading the same way. They are slowly weakening, losing their ability to support the plant properly. But since you cannot see this, you assume everything is still under control. This is how plants fail, not through sudden mistakes, but through repeated small actions that seem harmless. Each time you water too early, each time you interrupt the natural cycle, you add a little more pressure. Not enough to destroy the plant immediately, but enough to slowly drain its strength. And because the process is so slow, you adapt to it without realizing. You start to think this is just how the plant is. You lower your expectations. You accept weaker growth as normal. You accept dull leaves as part of the process. Without noticing, you begin to believe that this is the best your plant can do. Then one day, the signs become too clear to ignore. Leaves begin to drop more often. Growth almost stops completely. The plant no longer looks like it's struggling quietly. It looks like it's giving up. And in that moment, it feels sudden, like something just went wrong overnight. But the truth is, it didn't happen overnight. It was happening the entire time. It was building slowly, layer by layer, moment by moment, hidden beneath the surface where you couldn't see it. And that is the real danger. When damage is loud, you react. But when damage is silent, you continue. And by the time you finally notice, the plant is not just stressed. It is already exhausted from a process that never gave it a chance to fully recover. The moment you do less, everything starts to heal. At first, this feels wrong. Everything inside you tells you to do more, to water again, just in case, to check again, just to be sure, to fix something, even if you're not sure what it is, because you've been trained to believe care means action, but real care, especially with plants, often looks like restraint. It looks like stepping back. It looks like trusting the process, even when nothing seems to be happening. And this is the moment where everything begins to change. When you stop watering too often, the soil finally gets a chance to breathe again. Those tiny air spaces return. The roots are no longer sitting in constant moisture. They begin to recover, slowly, quietly. They start searching again. They stretch deeper into the soil, while they rebuild their strength from the inside. When you stop checking every day, the plant finally settles. It no longer has to adjust again and again. It finds its position. It aligns with the light. It stabilizes. And once stability returns, growth follows. Not fast, not dramatic, but real, healthy, sustainable. You begin to notice small changes. Leaves feel stronger. Color becomes richer. New growth appears, not forced, but natural. And the most powerful part is, you didn't add anything new. You didn't buy something. You didn't change everything. You simply removed the pressure. You gave the plant something it was missing all along: space, time, stillness. And in that stillness, the plant does what it was always designed to do. It heals itself. It adapts. It grows. This is the shift most people never understand. Growth is not created by constant action. It is allowed when unnecessary action stops. And once you see this, you stop trying to control every small detail. You stop reacting to every small change. You begin to trust the process more than your impulse. And that's when your plant stops struggling and starts thriving again. This habit isn't about plants. It's about control. If you look closely, this was never just about your plant. It was about the feeling you get when things are not fully in your control. That quiet discomfort when nothing is happening. That urge to step in, to fix, to do something, anything, just to feel certain again. Because waiting feels uncomfortable. Silence feels uncertain. And doing something, even if it's not needed, feels like relief. So you water again. You check again. You adjust again. Not always because the plant needs it, but because you need to feel in control of what's happening. And this is where the pattern becomes deeper. Because this habit doesn't stay with plants. It shows up everywhere, in how you handle problems, in how you respond to uncertainty, in how quickly you try to fix things before fully understanding them. You don't like leaving things alone. You don't like trusting what you cannot see. So you interfere early, repeatedly, constantly. And just like the plant, life doesn't always need that. Some things are not meant to be rushed. Some processes are meant to unfold quietly, without interruption. Growth, real growth, happens in phases you cannot control, in moments where nothing looks like it's changing, but everything is. And when you step in too early, you don't speed it up. You disturb it. You break its natural rhythm. You replace patience with pressure. And over time, that pressure creates the very problems you were trying to avoid. But the moment you become aware of this, something shifts. You start noticing the urge before you act on it. You pause. Instead of reacting instantly, you observe. Instead of interfering immediately. And slowly, you begin to trust what you cannot see. You allow things to develop in their own time. And that changes everything, because control feels powerful in the moment. But trust creates results over time. And when you finally let go of the need to control every small detail, you don't lose control. You gain something better. You gain balance. You gain clarity. You gain the ability to support growth without suffocating it, not just in your plants, but in everything you touch. So the next time you stand in front of your plant, pause for a moment. Don't rush to fix. Don't rush to act. Just look quietly, because maybe it doesn't need more from you. Maybe it just needs space. Maybe it just needs time. And maybe the best thing you can do right now is nothing at all. Let it breathe. Let it settle. Let it grow in its own rhythm. And if this made you see things differently, just take that with you. Come back to it. The next time you feel the urge to act too quickly. Because once you understand this, you don't just grow better plants. You grow patience, you grow awareness, and slowly, everything around you starts to change. If you want to keep learning simple ways to grow stronger, healthier plants, stay close. There's more coming. Quietly. Just like this.